Hello everybody and welcome back to Maths with Miss Buick. In this complex number video, we're focusing on solving I to the power of n. So you may be asked to find, for example, I to the 10, or maybe, for example, 4i cubed plus 7i to the 9. Or they may, instead of saying the word find, they may say the word evaluate. So before we even begin this question, we have to look at the following, which is really important. So we know that I on its own is equal to just I. We know that I squared is equal to -1. So from that, we're going to deduct what is I cubed. And we know from our rules of indices that I cubed can be formed from I multiplied by I squared, because we simply add our powers. So this will be a 1 here, 1 plus 2 is 3. And we can say then, well, there's my I. And we know that I squared is -1. So I cubed must be -I. And then finally, we can deduct I to the power 4. Well, we know again from rules of indices that I squared multiplied by I squared would be I to the power 4 because we add our indices, so 2 and 2 is 4. And we know that I squared is -1, and we multiply it again by another -1, and we get out here +1. So before we begin these questions, you always make sure that you work out I squared, I cubed, and I to the power 4. And we will be working with I to the power 4 in these examples because I think it's much easier to work with the likes of +1 rather than having to be dealing with -I or -1 or I up here instead. So we look at our question I to the power 10 and we simply say to ourselves, how many times does 4 divide into 10 and what is the remainder? So well, we know that 4 goes into 10 2 times and the remainder will be 2. So goes in 2 full times and a remainder of 2. So this here is our remainder. So then what we do is we say, well, actually, we look down at our list here and we say, what is the power of 2? And the power of 2 is -1. So the answer to this is -1. It was that easy. So all we do is we divide 4, and the reason we're dividing 4 is because we're using I to the 4. So we divide 4 into 10 and it goes in 2 times and there's a remainder of 2. So then you look down at your list here in terms of your powers and you say which one has got the power of 2, and it's -1. So the overall answer for this is -1. Now let's focus on the next one. So, well, there's my 4, so sometimes there'll be a coefficient in front of the I, so we'll leave that alone. So there's my 4. And I cubed, well, we know from our list that I cubed is a -I. So let's put in there -I. And there's another coefficient, which is 7. Now, let's do a little bit of work down here. So we'll do it over here, I suppose. So I to the 9. Well, okay, so we say, how many times does 4 go into 9? And 4 goes into 9 2 times, the remainder of 1. And we say, well, what is the power of 1? And of course, the power of 1 is I. So I to the 9 is just I. So we put an I in there. So let's change that there to 7i as we're writing over this because it can be hard to see. And let's then multiply in. So 4 by -I is -4i, and then 7 by I is +7i. So we get 3i as our overall answer to this question here. So before we begin any of these questions looking for I to some power of n, it's very important that you work out these 4 and you can deduct then straight away that I to the 4 is 1. You divide in 4 into your power, you see how many times it goes in, you ignore that part then and focus on the remainder. So again, to reiterate, 4 goes into 10 2 times with a remainder of 2. You take that remainder of 2 and you go down your list and look for that power of 2 and you can see it's -1. So the overall answer then for this one was -1. Down in this example down here, this was just straight off from our chart. So I cubed was -I. And then I to the 9. So how many times is 4 divided into 9? Well, 4 goes into 9 2 times, a remainder of 1. That was our remainder there, so a remainder of 1. And we go back to our chart and we can see that it's just I. So we replace the I to the 9 with an I.